Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020. Or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Rays leave the tying run in scoring position. Folks, as if I needed to say it again, this is not on the pitching. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there. Here at 11:06 on this Wednesday night. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. Number to call the show, 877-566-1020 if you'd like to share your thoughts about the Rays. It is another loss as they have now dropped 2 in a row to the New York Yankees. Tonight in the Bronx, 4-3 loss, dropping the Rays to 35-22. The first major league loss of Shane McClanahan's career, his first big league start in Yankee Stadium. There was a lot of things at play. A very weird start for him. Back-to-back very weird nights with the starting pitching. Neither Glasnow or McClanahan having much in the way of control the last couple nights. The Rays pitching staff as a whole struck out 14 tonight, but did walk 6. And then you compare that to the lineup, 10 strikeouts, and they did walk 5 times. But I think really, in all facets, the narrative was much the same. Obviously, McClanahan did not go nearly as deep into the game as Glasnow did last night. Tyler pitching 7 innings of 3 runs, and here tonight, McClanahan 3 1/3 of 4 runs. So the only difference really is that the Rays had to lean a little bit more in the bullpen, and they get almost 5 innings, 4 2/3 of scoreless ball from their bullpen. So if you want to take something away, and pretty much the B bullpen doing that as well, so that's a good thing. But the offense very much struggling. Again, a lot of offers. Thankfully, they get more than 3 hits. They double that total and end up getting 6 hits tonight and only eking away 3 runs, which is obviously not enough to get the job done. But the struggles with runners in scoring position was just about identical. They went 1 for 10 in that category in each of the first 2 games of this series, and here tonight they go 1 for 11. So far 3 games into the series, and they are 3 for 31 with runners in scoring position, and they leave another 9 men on the bases tonight. A couple of outs on the bases. Mike Brasso already said in the Zoom room that his base running mistake was just that. It was a boneheaded mistake on his part. His words, not mine, although read between the lines. I'm not necessarily going to disagree with him. It was a play that came in the 4th inning where after a leadoff single by Meadows, he followed it up with a double to make it 2nd and 3rd with nobody out in what was at that point, a 2-1 Rays deficit, or scratch that 2-0. Rays deficit, and a ground ball by Margot. He could have easily stayed at second, but instead tried to go for third. The ground ball was to the left side of the infield, so the Yankees were easily able to kind of run him down near third base for the out. And then there was a couple of other just really weird kind of things on the bases. The Yankees also had some outs on the base path, so the Rays defense continues to have some success. Maybe, if you can call it such, maybe a bounce-back night from their performance yesterday, where things were a little bit shaky. A couple of plays that you would say maybe cost some runs in that big third inning last night, but here tonight, as I said, things were tidied up just a little bit, and you want to look toward another similarity from yesterday's game. I know I don't want to ride that narrative too much, but as I look at it, things really are very similar. The Yankees were giving them chance after chance after chance. As I said, the lineup as a whole walked 5 times yesterday. They walked 6 times. And in 4 separate innings, the Rays got the first 2 men to come to the plate on base. So first and second or better, essentially, because they had second and third in the 4th inning. 4 times in 9 innings, and you only scored 3 runs during the entire game while doing that. That certainly is disappointing, and that's been, I would say at this point, maybe 75% of Rays losses boil down to this, where the pitching is great, really, save for some moments with Shane McClanahan. But I think if anything, this is just growing pains for him. He gets thrusted into the spotlight maybe a little bit early, perhaps for my liking. I know people have been calling for him for a while, but with a youngster like him who's new to the big leagues, this stuff is going to happen. Thankfully it was not 50,000 screaming Yankee fans. It was just under 14,000, but I think the pressure is all the same, and I think I just had to struggle locating his pitches. But that aside, the bullpen pitches fantastic. The defense plays well behind the pitching, and the offense does a good job of getting on base, getting chances with runners in scoring position, and then in those big moments, they're just not coming through. And it's not like the big moments we're finding the guys that you wouldn't necessarily want them to come to. I'm not calling anyone out, but you just look towards the bottom of the order, guys like Taylor Walls or Brett Phillips or someone of the likes of that. No, instead, the big moments were coming to guys like the leadoff hitter, Randy Arozarena, who goes 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, albeit a leadoff walk to start the game, but I think the sentiment is all the same. And I think Arozarena at this point is 1 for 13 in the series. So to say he's in a bit of a slump right now, I would probably say is an understatement. There is going to be times where Arozarena looks this way. This is how he looked very early in the season. He's hitting .254 now. I can recall times in April where his average was around there. And then when he was finding his stride in May, it was up over 300. But when he is wild and chasing away at the plate, this is what the result is going to look like. And it's a shame because a lot of big moments were finding him tonight, including in the 9th inning where the Rays walked, Aroldis Chapman walked the 8 and 9 hitters to start that 9th inning, and then, of course, ends up collecting already his 12th save of the season, an .041 earned run average for Aroldis Chapman. And at his advanced age, he's been doing this a while. Still with the velocity, had 102. 33-year-old, the left-hander Chapman, perhaps maybe having, if you could possibly say it, maybe his best major league season so far. And, it's a shame that it even had to come to that in the 9th inning. But even with that being said, it's never too late to come back in a game before the final out is made. And they did have the chance, and they squandered it. Not just the strikeout for Arozarena there, but also from Ji-Man Choi. But you don't really knock him. He came in as a pinch hitter, ended up going 1 for 2 on the night. Also lefty on lefty against Chapman. And also he worked seemingly, it seemed like it was a 10-pitch at-bat. I'll go look now. The strikeout swinging, it was an 8-pitch at-bat, and he was really making Chapman work for it. So he struck out there with first and second in the 9th. And then Austin Meadows, who worked a pretty decent at-bat of his own, fouled off some 2-strike pitches, ended up weakly grounding out basically to Chapman. Although he could have maybe made it a play at first. He didn't quite run it all the way out, but I'm not even going to go there because why bother? So a 4-3 loss. The Rays have dropped 2 straight for the first time in basically 2.5, almost 3 weeks. It has been a very long time because of the winning ways that they have been on. Obviously the 16 wins in 17 games, and it is looking at this point that stretch is probably coming to an end. They're going to face Garrett Cole on the mound tomorrow, which is certainly not a good matchup anytime really you're facing him, and boy did he dominate the last time he saw the Rays. And we'll talk about that at the end of the show. And then the stretch does get easy after that. I will say that Texas Rangers, Baltimore Orioles, and the Washington Nationals. So, there will be chances, there will be ups and downs again, but with this more April Rays than May Rays, really, if that makes any sense, is kind of what the team is looking like right now. So with that being said, at 11:14, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we return, dive deeper into tonight's loss. Want you to know during the break you can call the show at 877-566-1020 if you'd like to call in and talk Rays. We'd love to hear your thoughts. But with that being said, we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Spreaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:17, we are back on the William Haynes Show, this Rays post-game edition of the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call the program, 877-566-1020, as we are with you for about another 30 or 45 minutes as we continue to put a bow on tonight's 4-3 loss. So, officially, it was in 3 hours and 38 minutes and in front of a paid attendance in New York City of 13,824. The 4-3 loss puts the Yankees up in this 4-game set, 2-1. So the Rays will just hope to salvage perhaps a 4-game split tomorrow against Garrett Cole tomorrow afternoon. It drops the Rays to 35-22. They are now 20-9 on the road, and improves the Yankees to 31-25. They're now 17-12 at home. You look at the American League East standings. As it stands right now, the Rays are still a game and a half above the Boston Red Sox because the Bo Sox have lost 2 in a row, as have the Rays. So they do maintain that division lead, and the Yankees get a game closer. They are just 3.5 games back of first in third place. And in case you're wondering, the Blue Jays in fourth at 29-25. They are 4.5 games back of first place. They have won 2 in a row. So no matter what happens tomorrow afternoon, the Rays will leave New York City still in first place in the American League East, and on June 3rd is what it will be. That is still a good accomplishment, but and trust me, I understand. You're not going to be able to win every game. My expectation for this team going into the season was that they were going to win maybe 85, 86, 87 games. So they obviously you would say that they are easily on track for that. So to really, and we talked about this a bit last night, to kind of bemoan losses like this, at least at this point, it's not like they're at 500, in mid-May anymore. This team has really found their stride, and they have the division lead and all that stuff. And I understand, you can't get complacent. You can't drive yourself in circles after every loss, and that's just what I would say to anyone that's no one's hitting the panic button right now, but there is frustration, and that's certainly what I would respond to that. The Rays, 3 runs on 6 hits, no errors. As I said, they played a little bit cleaner of a game defensively, and against them on the other side, the New York Yankees edging them out with 4 runs on 9 hits and 2 errors defensively. There was a potential for there to be a third. The official score didn't go that way. That was the RBI single for Ji-Man Choi in the 7th. It was off the glove of the pitcher Jonathan Loaizaga, and Rougned Odor probably could have thrown him out at first. So I guess you really could have called the error on either of those guys. They end up just calling it a hit all the way, the RBI single pinch hit for Choi in the 7th, and then the other two, the 2 errors that were officially ruled, excuse me, in the 5th inning, an error against Rougned Odor on what should have been potentially a double play ball, but at least getting the runner really at first or second. He could have gone to either one, but instead kind of throws the ball away and gave the Rays runners at the corners with nobody out to start the 5th inning. And of course, the Rays, they do get a run, but I would say in that moment probably squandered the opportunity for the most part. And then the second error came to lead off the 7th inning. Just a ground ball by Joey Wendell off the glove of Jonathan Loaizaga again. So kind of the same thing happening. Or no, that was actually against Jordan Montgomery, pardon me. The starter that was still in the game to start off the 7th inning, and he collects an out there as he goes 6 1/3. So those were where the 2 errors came from. The decisions on the pitching side, as I mentioned, Jordan Montgomery getting the win for the Yankees. He is now 3-1 on the year. 6 1/3 of a run, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. He looked relatively sharp today, and I think he's kind of changing the narrative on basically his career against the Rays. It seemed like, in 2020, the Rays had really beat him around, but has come around in 2021 with some pretty good starts against Tampa Bay, and that held true really into tonight. Left a little bit of a mess, as we said, for Loaizaga, but Loaizaga has been absolutely terrific against the Rays his entire career, so obviously that didn't end up coming to bite the pinstripes in the rear end. And then, as I said, the save, Aroldis Chapman, his 12th of the year in his inning of work, 2 strikeouts, but 2 walks to start off. And then getting the loss, the first of his major league career, Shane McClanahan, the starter, goes only 3 1/3, giving up 4 earned runs on 5 hits, also walks 2, and strikes out 6. We'll talk about it more in detail later, but I think the main things for me, did not pitch inside nearly enough. Maybe that's just not his game. We're still learning a lot about him. But a lefty in McClanahan facing, 8 right-handed hitters, you're going to pitch them away with the short fence in right field. To me, the game plan, the strategy, that doesn't really make any sense to me. And if that's just McClanahan doing what he does, then that's just a terrible matchup, having him, especially in the Bronx with all those right-handed hitters, because the Yankees' offensive strategy tonight was terrific. I think it was one of the pitchers last night, I want to say Fireisen maybe, or maybe even Kittredge, talking about the race to 2 strikes, the philosophy really throughout the organization that the Rays have, that it's, no matter what, just get to 2 strikes as quickly as you can. Well, the Yankees here, you say that, and they're not going to let you get to 2 strikes. If you're just trying to get stuff over the zone, as Dave Wills calls, get me over strikes, no, they're just going to hit you around with it, and that's what they did to the tune of 9 hits here tonight. And as I said, when you're a lefty pitching righties away, they're just dumping that into right field, and that's what they did mostly against McClanahan. And then really the only other thing is just kind of like Glasnow. The breaking stuff wasn't called for strikes an awful lot. He did get some swing and miss, some chase with the slider and the changeup, but not nearly enough, obviously, for you to say that he was at his best. I think you would quite easily say that this is probably the worst start of his career. It's the shortest he's gone into a ball game. Interestingly enough, I think we found out the limit with McClanahan is not a pitch count thing. I think it's more of an innings thing, as he threw 79 pitches in comparison to his 63 that he threw across 5 scoreless innings against the Royals his last time out. So 3 1/3, the shortest start of his career, and so far the worst, and again getting the first major league loss of the youngster's career. The lineup that Kevin Cash sent out there this evening in defensively, first in the outfield from left to right, it was Austin Meadows in left, Brett Phillips in center, Manuel Margot in right, and then in the infield from third to first, it was Joey Wendell at third base, Taylor Walls at shortstop, Mike Brasso at second base, Yandy Diaz at first, Francisco Mejia did the catching, and Randy Arozarena was the DH. I think against the lefty Montgomery, this was mostly as we expected. Brandon Lau ended up being the odd man out in the infield, which I did not quite anticipate. I thought Mike Brasso would be in the game, but just probably not at second base. I figured he probably would have taken Wendell out maybe, so have Brasso and Yandy at the corners, and then Lau at second base, Walls at shortstop, whatever. But instead, obviously, Lau gets the night off. He pinch hits in the 8th inning for just a really horrible strikeout against the righty Chad Green. So that was a favorable matchup for him, and that he could not take advantage of. And Brandon Lau has really found himself in a bit of a low point again, right as we think he's kind of turning it around. And then outside of that, everything pretty much normal. Kiermaier gets the night off. Mike Zunino gets the night off, as I think anyone really could have guessed. Although Shane McClanahan, it seems like he speaks very highly of Zunino, and Zunino has caught most, if not all, of his starts. That was the one thing I missed pre-prep show, so I'll try and rectify that if we can before the show's over with. But most of his starts, I can say, again, if not all, have been caught by Zunino, so maybe a bit of a chemistry thing. Dave Wills was suggesting on the radio call that the youth combination, McClanahan and Mejia, two very young players going up against really a veteran-laden Yankee lineup, that was probably not a great matchup. I think there is some credence to that, because you could just tell sequences that were not well executed. Even when McClanahan was making his pitches, the at-bats were still not going the way that he and really the Rays wanted them to go. So I think he's got a lot to work on. We've really said that about McClanahan after every one of his starts. Ever really since his first career start, I've been saying he could probably benefit from some time in Durham still, but the Rays have made it very clear that he's here to stay. Albeit without an injury or anything along those lines. But back to the lineup, the way that the lineup was ordered: Arozarena led off, followed by Yandy Diaz and Austin Meadows. Mike Brasso had cleanup, followed by Margot and Mejia, and the 7, 8, 9 hitters were Joey Wendell, Taylor Walls, and Brett Phillips. So obviously with Brandon Lau out of the lineup, he cannot hit leadoff, so Randy goes back to that, and I guess they picked a bad game to have him hit leadoff, as he goes 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. I guess you don't call it the golden sombrero because he does add the walk, so 5 total plate appearances, but only the 4 at bats. So, but was very tough to watch him at the plate tonight. Yandy Diaz hits higher in the lineup than he usually has, but I think that was really just with all the struggles that the Rays have had this season against left-handed pitching. You want to stack those kind of righties towards the top, and so Yandy does move up a little bit. Austin Meadows, in the 3 spot, that's where he's going to hit towards the top of the order when he's hot. They've enjoyed having him at cleanup, so it kind of stays there. Brasso hitting cleanup against lefties, as he's done a lot this season, and going, now is hitting 183. I think was even worse going into tonight, obviously. He was 2 for 3, so you actually do get a pretty good performance out of Mike Brasso, although that base running mistake, in a way, kind of erased that double that he hit in the 4th inning. But nevertheless, anything is better than nothing for him, and he was pinch hit for by Lau in the 8th inning. And then kind of the middle of the order is as you would expect, Margot at the 5 spot. Mejia at the 6 is a little bit high, but I think that's mainly because they're moving Wendell down, who's in a bit of a slump. At 287, if you can really call that a slump, but his 0 for 4 dropped him basically down another 5 or 6 points. 2 nights ago, he was batting 302, and now he's all the way down to 287, so he's going to find himself in a bit of a rough place if he continues down this line. I'm not quite sure how that's going to end up, but the team is they find themselves in these kind of funks, and it seems like everyone is struggling at the plate at the same time, and that's really where some losses can stack up on you in a hurry. So they should, obviously, to say they need to be careful or stop doing that. It's obviously they understand that. So we're just all at home watching it, and I think Dave and Andy brought up a good point on the radio call tonight, saying anyone like them, myself, some of the fans as well that are watching the team every single night. My quest to watch all 162 this year. The reoccurring kind of issues just really, really come out because when they're on a stretch like this and you're watching them for 3.5 hours every night, just squandering opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, obviously the frustration will mount, and we were certainly there in April and early May, getting close to hitting that panic button. And then obviously the Rays continue to do what they always do, which is to kind of come out of it and prove that the moves that they made were right and that they're going to come out on the other side okay. So that's my piece on that. And then the pitching, McClanahan goes 3 1/3, and then he leaves a bit of a gem in the 4th inning for Ryan Thompson, who makes it a little bit interesting, but does end up getting out of it, but not really. Gives up a 2 RBI single to the first man that he faces, but limits the damage to just that. McClanahan left and the bases loaded with 1 out. We've seen Thompson get out of those before, and obviously the game would have gone in a different direction had that been different, but obviously you don't blame that on him. He's not going to be perfect every time. So that was certainly one of the bigger moments of the game. McHugh, 2 scoreless innings, and then Springs, 2 scoreless innings. So I think if anything, it's good that they were able to get some bulk work out of some guys. The fact that McHugh took 56 pitches to get through 2 innings, that was just rough to watch. Like a 10-pitch at-bat, it seemed like almost every time. So he's going to be out for probably 3 or so days. And then Springs, 29 pitches, probably the same, out 2 or 3 days. So that's probably not a good thing, I guess, overall when you look at it. But the bullpen is going to be taxed no matter which way you play it when your starter only goes 3 1/3. And I was saying that going into this Yankees series, I was hoping they would be more careful with the bullpen in that Philly series, but Cash decided to play that 2-game set a little more aggressive, and maybe it doesn't put you in a pinch here, but this weekend, possibly in Texas, they're going to be a bit thin, and that just really puts more pressure on the starters, which really is the last thing that they need right now, and then the offense, obviously. We asked them to score? No, don't do that. I suppose we could go one by one, but I don't really think that that's necessary tonight. I think really just discuss the scoring opportunities, and I know I did already kind of touch on it, but in the first inning, Randy Arozarena working the leadoff walk, and then right after that, I don't know if really that's on him. He's getting the signs from the dugout. He was running on first movement from Jordan Montgomery, and as he kind of went into the wind, Montgomery stepped off, and they had Arozarena in a rundown, so that erases the leadoff walk. By the way, he started off 0-2, and then obviously worked the count full and was able to work the walk. But then to get caught stealing there was kind of tough. So an early scoring chance maybe that they squander, you would potentially say. In the second inning, the leadoff single for Mike Brasso, and then Manuel Margot runs out a double play to keep him at first. Mejia singles, so it's first and second with only one out, and then Wendell strikes out, and Taylor Walls grounds out. You'll have to excuse me for that. I had to clap a bug that was flying in front of me. I just figured I should say that when you hear the loud clap on the broadcast. But anyway, they go down 1-2-3 in the third. In the fourth inning, it was a leadoff single for Austin Meadows, the double from Mike Brasso, his sixth double of the year, and also, by the way, the only extra base hit on the night for the Rays. So that is a bit frustrating as well. They had two of the three hits last night were home runs, so at least they were doing some damage when they were making contact. Tonight, not as much, more so of the single variety. And then after that Brasso double that made it second and third with nobody out, it was Manuel Margot putting the ball in play. It was Tarugnet Odor between first and second, and he tries to go to second base to get, I guess to get Brasso, I would say, but the ball ends up getting away, and so instead of getting anyone, no, excuse me, no, I had that confused. So Manuel Margot puts the ball between second and third, and Mike Brasso, for whatever reason, was running on contact. They get him in a rundown between second and third, but Meadows, who was already at third, is able to get home. So we got that straightened out. That was for the second run that the Rays scored, and then Margot at first. So instead of second and one out, it was first and one out. So that kind of took some air out of things. And then Mejia and Wendell were retired to follow. So what could have been maybe a big inning after the single and double to start off, they end up only getting one run. Then in the fifth inning, a leadoff walk for Taylor Walls. And then that was the play I was thinking of that went to Rugnet Odor, and he tried to go to second base for the out, and he ends up kind of throwing it away. So instead of what could have been maybe a double play or a runner at first with one out, whatever, it ends up being runners at the corners with nobody outs to start the fifth. And not only that, but the Rays go back to the top of their order for Randy Arozarena, who strikes out. Yandy Diaz does put the ball in the air. He does get a sacrifice fly, a run batted in to score. Taylor Walsh from third base when he goes first to third on the error, and then Austin Meadows grounded out to end the inning there, and that's not the only time he was going to do that tonight with runners in scoring position. Actually did that 3 times in a row, which is not what you want to see from Meadows. At least I guess you'd say he's putting the ball in play. They go down in order in the 6th. Then in the 7th, a leadoff error allows Joey Wendell to reach base off the mitt of Jonathan Loaizaga to make it, basically, leadoff runner at first base. Then a Taylor Walsh single that makes it first and second with nobody out, with a 9-man. Phillips at the plate. On a pitch where Phillips strikes out for the first out of the inning, the Rays pull off a double steal, so kind of like a bunt. I mean, to the same effect. Second and third with one out, back to the top of the order. Does that ring a bell? It should, and the results kind of bear out the same. Arozarena strikes out in that situation again, and then instead of having Yandy Diaz hit there, they pinch hit for G-Man Choi, because that was at that time against the righty Jonathan Loaizaga, and G-Man Choi ends up hitting an RBI single. That one could have been an error to Loaizaga, could have been an error maybe to Rugnet Odor, but they just rule it a hit all the way. And then that makes the score 4-3 Yankees. And in that situation, after that Choi hit that came in the 7th inning, that made it runners at the corners with 2 outs for Austin Meadows. And again, does that ring a bell? It should. An 8-pitch at bat, so to his credit, was trying to work the count there. It was on a full count as well. It ended up grounding out to end the inning there. So a chance. They had the tying run 90 feet away there in the 7th. Do nothing with it. They get a 1-out walk in the 8th. Don't do anything with that. And then obviously what everyone is going to remember was the walks to start the 9th inning against Aroldis Chapman by Taylor Walsh and Brett Phillips. First and second with nobody out, then back to the top of the order again. Like I said, does it sound familiar? It should. A strikeout for Randy, a strikeout for G-Man Choi, and in a really good long at-bat. And then Austin Meadows, who worked a pretty decent at-bat as well to his credit, does end up grounding out to end the inning and the game. Really, like I said, could have maybe ran it out, but I don't know that's much of a conversation to be had. So I will just leave it at that, and that's really how you get your ball game. And then on the pitching side, I really mostly discussed with McClanahan everything that you would need to know outside of his line. 79 pitches, 49 strikes, so that's not an incredible ratio there. In the 17 batters that he faced, threw first pitch strike to 10 of them, so that's not too terrible. And you would, well, I wouldn't say only walk 2. I mean, 2 walks and 3 1/3 is not, tremendous. And then the 5 hits to boot. So 7 base runners and only 10 outs. I would probably say that that's not such a great thing. His ERA is up to 4.11. But at this point, what does that really mean for him? Ryan Thompson inherited a bases loaded 1-out situation and gave up a 2 RBI single to Clint Frazier, of all people. Why are we still doing this to Clint Frazier, who in 4 plate appearances reached base 3 times, 3 of 4 getting on base, the 9-man, and granted, the kid is still hitting 190, so that's one of the frustrating things to come out of this series. Why can't they just get Clint Frazier out? This series could be completely different. This series could be 3-0 right now if they could have just gotten Clint Frazier out. So that's frustrating all on its own. And like I said about McHugh and Springs, 2 scoreless innings apiece for those guys, but their pitch counts are probably going to keep them out for a while. So I know, we're only 37 minutes into the program. It's going to be a bit shorter of a show tonight. I just don't have really as much to discuss right now. I don't want to belabor the point too much. There's only mostly negative things to be said about the game, and I don't want to just load it up with that. So I think we're pretty close to closing the book on that, and I think we are going to do that. And at this point, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we will preview tomorrow's contest tomorrow afternoon in the Bronx, and then get you up on out of here. So again, we'll be back in a short moment. We got anyone listening you'd like to call in, maybe share your thoughts before we get off the air? 877-566-1020. We'll be back in a second.
Are you a fan of Florida State University athletics? Then the WHBC-produced podcast, FSU Sports Daily, is for you. Returning this fall, FSU Sports Daily is your everyday look into everything from Florida State football, basketball, baseball, soccer, and much, much more. The William Haynes Show will be right back.
HBC.
At 11:43, we return on the William Haynes Show. We have wrapped up our discussion on tonight's loss, and we now turn the page to tomorrow's contest tomorrow afternoon in the Bronx. Rays and Yankees, the finale of a 4-game set. The Rays hoping the best they can do is split the series and continue their road trip. They'll be in Texas and Arlington to play the Rangers this weekend. But tomorrow it is going to be the lefty Yarbrough against the righty Garrett Cole. I guess not made official. Cash said that they are probably going to start Ryan Yarbrough, so I can only take that to mean that he is probably going to start. So Ryan Yarbrough, the 29-year-old left-hander, is 2-3 on the year with a .426 earned run average. This is his third time already this season facing the New York Yankees, and neither one of his starts against the Bronx Bombers are incredibly overwhelming. His last time out on May the 12th, that 1-0 loss, he went just 3 1/3 scoreless, 2 hits, and 4 strikeouts, and I don't believe that he started that game. And then his April 18th appearance in the Bronx went 5 innings of 1 run, 2 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. That one I know was behind an opener because I can vividly remember that game where he was kind of picking around the corners, not really going up and into the righties like he should have, and was just kind of working out of some jams incredibly. So he was lucky to come away 5 innings of just 1 run allowed. So that's the one thing I can say about Yarbrough if he wants to have more success tomorrow. And that's really one thing I was kind of realizing. His last time out was Saturday at home against the Phillies, 4 1/3 in an outright start, 2 runs on 3 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, 78 pitches. And I was there watching it. I was up in the 300 section, kind of behind home plate. It was the first time really I had done that for a Yarbrough start and just kind of watching his stuff. And everyone wants to talk about the disparity between him as a starter or coming behind an opener. And while the numbers would tell you that makes a difference, I would say really kind of his strategy and how he's emphasizing his pitches is really what makes the difference. When obviously most lineups are going to be heavy right-handed, and this is especially true with the New York Yankees. He's at his best when he can throw that cutter and have it run up and in to the right-handed hitters. Usually it's jam shots, pop-ups, whatever, and even some swing and miss there as well. And when he does that, he's at his best. Even if he's hitting a couple batters, that's still brushing them off the plate and not allowing them to just sell out on the away kind of changeups and sliders. And usually whenever he has a bad start, it's because he's not emphasizing the cutter. He's not working into right-handers, and so they're just looking away. And on pitches that are 72 miles an hour, guys are going to have a field day with that. And I can tell you right now, this Yankees lineup is geared up for those away pitches because I just watched them do it to the tune of 9 hits here tonight. So they're there, they're aggressive, they understand what Yarbrough's trying to do, and that's really going to be the make or break, not just for his start, but probably for the entire game as well, because of where the offense is at right now. So it's hard to predict how deep he's going to go into the ball game. I would imagine even if he's struggling a little bit, they're going to want to keep him in as long as possible. There's times where he's given up runs and they just have him wear it. I mean, he gave up 5 runs in the first against Houston in a game, and he ended up going 6 innings. The same against Texas, 6 innings start where he gave up 6 runs, 5 innings of 6 runs against Boston. So there's times where he's really given up a lot of runs, but they'll just keep him in the game because they're just trying to get outs, and I think that would kind of be the case right now as well. You look at the bullpen right now. Ryan Thompson would be in play tomorrow. He's a guy that you would have. McHugh is out. Springs is out. You would say that probably Michael Wacha is out, obviously. But there are guys available, not that you would be particularly eager on playing them, but I mean, Feyereisen, Castillo has not pitched since Sunday, so he would certainly be probably one of the first men out of the pen. So you got Thompson, Castillo, Feyereisen, even Fairbanks, and maybe even Kittredge if you wanted to throw it in there. So there are certainly options, but they should at least be careful on how they're utilizing guys, because at least to my eyes, they're maybe using some guys a little bit too much, and just to be careful of that so that they don't end up with a bunch of arms on the injured list like they did going into the season. So that's how I would anticipate that playing out. And then we look now to the Yankees side of things, the pitching side. Garrett Cole, their ace, the 30-year-old right-hander, is 6-2 on the season with a 178 earned run average. He has, of course, faced the Rays a couple of times this season, twice in fact. His last time against Tampa Bay at Tropicana Field went 8 innings, shutout, 4 hits, no walks, 12 strikeouts, 106 pitches. I was there in attendance, and I had to say that's one of the best pitching performances I've ever seen at the Trop, maybe even more so than that Glasnow performance that he had last week against Kansas City. I mean, Garrett Cole looked nearly unhittable that night, and he collected the win there as well. His first start against the Rays came all the way back on April the 18th at Yankee Stadium, where he went 6 1/3, 2 runs on 5 hits, no walks, 10 strikeouts. So in just over 14 innings, 14 1/3 innings pitched against the Rays this year, has only given up 2 runs and has not walked anybody. So the numbers would lead you to believe that the Rays are potentially in for some trouble, and that obviously puts a lot of pressure on Yarbrough. So they're going to need to keep the game close if they want any shot at winning this thing. Garrett Cole's last time out at Detroit, he went 6 innings, 1 run allowed on 6 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. His walk numbers are a little bit up, where he had that long stretch where he only walked 3 batters the entire month of April, and then went his first 2 starts, 1 of 7 and 1 of 8 innings in May without walking anybody, and that's when he set the record for, I think, how many innings for a starter without a walk. And then since then, walked 2 in a start, 3 in a start, and 1 his last time out. So maybe that trend is coming back to the mean a little bit, but no matter which way you slice it, base runners are going to be hard to come by. Trying to predict potentially the lineup tomorrow. Obviously, G-Man Choi, the Garrett Cole killer. He's 4 for, I think, 10 for 21 career against Cole with 4 homers. So to get him in the lineup for the first time against him this year, that's going to be certainly a treat. Most of the left-handers are going to be in. You would expect, if Meadows is in, he'll play. Probably DH Meadows. So I would go probably Randy in left, Kiermaier in center, maybe Phillips in right, unless you want Margot in there, in which case you would put Margot in right instead of Brett Phillips. But I'm just thinking for righty-lefty purposes. And then in the infield, from third to first, I would do Joey at third, Walls at shortstop, Lau at second, Choi at first, and then probably Zunino to catch. And that's how you would go about things. Unless you want to give Randy the day off entirely, in which case you would put Meadows, or in which case, you would probably DH Meadows and then have Margot and Phillips in the corners in the outfield and Kiermaier in center. So those are, at least to my imagination, the possibilities that they would go to tomorrow afternoon. We will not be on the air because it's a daytime afternoon game. I won't even be able to watch it live. I'll be at work, so I'll have to watch the replay sometime after. So the next time we will talk will actually be Friday night after a game in Texas, and we don't know really either the starters. Texas has an undecided. The Rays slotted it's Fleming's day to pitch, but there's no guarantee that he'll even throw at all, let alone to start. So there's not much to preview there, but I'm just saying That is the next time that we will be on the air is Friday night. That's an 8 o'clock start, so we may be on, midnight, but, right after the game ends. And, of course, make sure you're following us on Twitter at WHBC Official, following this show on Spreaker.com where you're listening. Thank you to everyone who tuned into the program tonight, everyone on the Rays Reddit page, the Rays Discord server, all that good stuff. Appreciate the continued support. Hopefully have some callers here, not tomorrow, but Friday, the next time that we're on. So hopefully the Rays can salvage the series split against the Yankees and hopefully get a W in Arlington for game 1 of that set. Lots to discuss, I'm sure. We look forward to it as always, and until then, we will talk to you soon.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
News.